Welcome to Organized Chaos, the podcast dedicated to helping seven-figure companies grow to nine-figure ones by turning HR into rocket fuel for their growth. I'm your host, Nahat Kirwala, and I've been helping companies do just that for more than a decade. In each episode, I'll dive into HR topics that have a significant impact on your company's growth and leave you with actionable advice that will help your business reach its full potential. Let's dive right in and start organizing all that HR chaos. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 6. Today I'm going to take you on a deep dive into remote work, and I'll focus on how you can build a remote company that actually works. In the last episode, I talked about the difference between remote, hybrid, and in-office work, and talked about the advantages and disadvantages of each. I also touched upon the types of companies that each model is suited for. If you missed it, then check out episode 5. Before I jump into the factors that make a successful remote company, I want to spend some time dissecting the current remote work landscape and dispel some of the myths around it, because there's a lot of noise in the media about remote work with little to no evidence to back it up. Today, 16% of all companies in the US are fully remote. Although that doesn't seem like a lot, it's a significant increase since 2019, when only 10 to 12% of companies were fully remote. The significant rise has actually been in the total percentage of US employees working fully remotely. In January 2020, only 6.6% of Americans worked fully remotely. In January 2023, that number rose to 16.1%. So that's a 10% increase in only 3 years, which is massive. Before COVID, only 23% of professionals did some remote work. Today, that number has grown to 59%. So it is obvious that remote work is here to stay. Even companies that operate exclusively from the office are increasingly adding hybrid or fully remote roles. So the percentage of remote employees will continue to rise in the foreseeable future. I'm recording this episode on September 5 of 2024, and the last 12 months have been flooded with news of return to office mandates from prominent companies. Many of them who are rolling back their remote work policies in favor of a hybrid or in-office working model. Quite honestly, I wouldn't have expected anything less. There's nothing easier than going back to what we know, our comfort zone, regardless if it works or not. The biggest sham we have been led to believe is that being in the office is where the sparks fly, and employees can be creative, something which is not possible in a remote setting. In reality, the problem has never been about where we work, but how we work. Let me walk you through the workday of a typical American employee based on the results of the 2023 State of Modern Work Survey by Almanac. This is how employees spend their time at work. 34% of their time is spent searching for files. 33% of their time is spent responding to emails and messages. 28% of their time is spent attending meetings. That's 95% of the workday. And you guessed it, only 5% of their time is spent doing actual work. 24% of the respondents said that they always or usually have to work during the weekends instead of spending time with their family, friends, or hobbies. These numbers prove that how we work is the problem, not where we work. If the typical employee only spends 5% of their time doing actual work, then it's safe to say that the system is broken and it needs a major overhaul. Which brings me back to these return to office mandates that companies are forcing onto employees with the excuse that it will lead to better productivity, creativity, and whatever cliche buzzword you can think of. Take Starbucks, for example. They recently rolled back their remote work policies for corporate jobs, but just hired a new CEO, Brian Niccol, who was the former CEO of Chipotle, and granted him a hybrid work arrangement. And check this out. He'll be commuting from his home in Newport Beach, California, to the Starbucks Seattle headquarters using a company-owned private jet. Mind you that all Starbucks corporate employees are required to work from the office every day except the CEO. So if the most critical job at a company can be done remotely to some extent, then why can't all other office jobs do at least the same? The biggest reason why remote work is such a challenge for many companies is because they've taken the ways of working from the office and transplanted them to the remote working environment. So what companies essentially did is take a broken model, one that's been around since the pre-World War II production factory days, and decide that it is fit for purpose in today's modern working environment. You might be wondering why I'm talking about how we work as opposed to remote work. That's because I believe that remote is the future for companies that deliver knowledge-based work, but not by using our current ways of working. The way we work today is flawed, and remote work is an enabler for improving how we work. So let's dive into how you can build a remote company that actually works. The advice I'm going to share is based on documented success stories of fully remote companies, as well as my personal experience in helping 3 startups transition to fully remote and scale globally during the process. Number 1, embrace asynchronous work. There's no point in being remote if everyone has to be online at the same time, all the time, in order to get work done. It is essential to have some overlap of working hours with your team, and my experience has been that 3 to 4 hours a day is usually a good overlap, just to ensure efficient collaborative work when needed. Collaborate in documents over meetings when working asynchronously. Capture ideas in documents to ensure that they are retained and then refine until you're ready for a conversation with your team. In a remote working environment, meetings should only be reserved for complex problems that are not easily resolved in a document or instant messaging exchange. Number 2, document everything. Documentation is like the holy grail in a remote work setting. Document things like processes, team structures, decisions, approvals, and so forth. Share these documents with all relevant employees to ensure transparency and consistency. I also recommend documenting the role of each team and their individual members to help existing and new employees understand how your organization functions from the early days. This will reduce the ramp-up time for employees and improve your operational efficiency when everyone is clear on their roles and responsibilities and how those are interconnected with the organization at large. In the office environment, there is a reliance on impromptu calls, meetings, messages, and immediate feedback to fill the gaps in information. It's a model that thrives on real-time feedback because most things go undocumented. There is also the assumption that employees should know the unwritten rules of the organization, rules that one can pick up on when physically present in a common space with peers. But that's not possible in a remote setting, nor is it productive. Number 3, standardization. Another critical element of a successful remote working environment is the ability to structure and standardize your entire operation. Create templates for all the documents that you use frequently. Standardize decision-making processes. I highly recommend that you clearly define your processes and provide a step-by-step guide that will be clear to anyone who reads it. When decisions are involved, it is always best to empower a single person to make the final decision. Indecisiveness and consensus by committee decision-making are productivity killers and create a lot of confusion, especially in a remote working environment. Number 4, invest in technology. All this standardization is great, but you need something that enforces it. Unfortunately, people aren't great at doing repetitive tasks the same way every time, and that's where technology comes in. Invest in technology wherever you have repeatable standards, processes, and work to ensure consistency in implementation. Do you want to enforce a certain reporting template? Then use a tool that allows you to do that. Do you want decisions to follow a specific workflow based on different criteria? Then find a workflow tool that can support it. Another benefit of implementing technology across your operation is that it enables you to make changes and evolve without worrying if all employees are aware of the changes. The technology will simply enforce the change, and all you have to worry about is the communication to your team with updated documentation. Number 5, design your operation with a bias for action. When you're in a remote setting, it's very unproductive to consolidate power with a few individuals at the top. You cannot move quickly by doing that. Instead, empower everyone on your team to take action within clearly defined areas. Make it crystal clear when a decision needs to be escalated and empower employees to take action on anything else. If you're a startup founder or leader, make sure to provide clarity and context around what types of decisions are decentralized and grant employees the authority and autonomy to take action as they see fit. You trusted them enough to hire them, so might as well trust them to do their jobs. Take this a step further and optimize all of your processes to accommodate this mindset of bias for action. Evaluate your processes and identify where you can simplify, delegate, empower, and reduce the time to action without compromising on the quality of your outcomes. Number 6, champion flexibility. Focus your efforts on measuring output, not input. In other words, it doesn't matter when and how long your employees work if they are delivering work output that meets the company's standards. This also extends into how work is done. Resist the urge to dictate to employees how they should do the work because it doesn't really matter if they're achieving results. That's assuming that the how does not cross any legal or ethical boundaries. Offering this type of flexibility and autonomy is a game changer. It creates a culture that employees want to be a part of, and it elevates the level of trust within the team. Not to mention the sense of freedom that employees will feel because they are not bound by archaic rules. Having said that, there are cases where some employees will not be able to enjoy the same level of flexibility as their peers due to the nature of their job. For example, a customer service agent is required to work a specific shift to provide the needed coverage, but that doesn't mean that everyone at the company has to abide by the same working hours. Don't fall into the trap of trying to box everyone into the same set of rules under the premise of equality. Different jobs warrant different considerations. The end game here is that you want to optimize the work environment for the collective benefit of everyone in it. And I think that's something that everyone can rally around. Number 7, focus on what's important. It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day frenzy at work, and that sometimes causes us to take our eyes off the ball. In any business, but especially in a remote company, it's critical that you identify the main goals and metrics the business is focused on. Everything else becomes secondary and allows you and your team to prioritize accordingly. For example, if one of your goals is to improve your product time to market, then any type of work that doesn't improve time to market should be deprioritized unless it aligns with another goal. Narrowing down your focus is a good thing. Remote companies that try to do too much fragment at an accelerated pace, and it usually results in a high level of inefficiency. Things like duplication of efforts and misplaced investments become the norm, and things quickly spiral out of control. This is something I've personally witnessed with several companies over the years, and it happens quicker and is more pronounced in remote companies. A good way to ensure focus on the important things is to share recurring progress reports, like monthly or quarterly, with the entire company. This serves as a constant reminder on what's important because you are focusing on a specific set of outcomes. Finally, and number 8, hire the right people for remote work. Just like there are people who cannot function in the chaos of startups or the bureaucracy of large enterprises, there are people who are not equipped to succeed in a remote working environment. First and foremost, a capable remote employee requires no supervision to do their work. They understand what is required of them and will ensure that they get things done without being told to do so. The best remote employees are also very disciplined and organized. They are excellent communicators and know how to get a message across very concisely. They help you build a great culture through their actions and ways of working, not through socialization and get-togethers. Employees who do not fit this description will struggle in a remote environment. They stick out like a sore thumb because they just cannot hide in a remote team. They will hold others back and bottleneck your operation, especially if you're a small company. Now, I'd like to end this episode with examples of two companies that have become references in how to do remote work right. Both companies embody everything I talked about earlier, and their success is a testament to the effectiveness of remote work when done right. The first company is 37 Signals, who is famous for its project management software Basecamp. This company has been in business since 1999 and went fully remote after a few years from its founding. So 37 Signals has been a 100% remote company for more than 20 years. They have around 80 employees that are distributed globally, working in different time zones. Most of their employees are software engineers, and guess what? None of them is based in the Bay Area. For those of you who don't know, Basecamp, their flagship product and first product, is a market leader with small and mid-sized businesses and boutique consulting firms. This company essentially wrote the book on remote work, and their co-founders have published several books on how to run a fully distributed company. My favorite is Remote Office Not Required, and I've included a link to the book in the show notes. 37 Signals have been able to compete with companies that are hundreds of times larger than they are. Some of their direct competitors include Monday.com, Asana, Slack, and Smartsheet. 37 Signals is a 100% private company. They have no seed funding, no external investment, a fully bootstrapped operation. What's amazing about 37 Signals is that they've been disrupting the industries they play in since their early days. Basecamp was a game changer in the project management software space when it launched. And now, 37 Signals is disrupting the email and calendaring market with their new service, Hey. This company has been a model in innovation for more than 2 decades, and they've done it with less than 100 full-time employees. The second company is Zapier, the workflow automation tool. Zapier was founded in 2012 and currently employs more than 800 employees across 40 countries. They've been a fully remote company from day one, and Zapier is currently valued at over $5 billion. Their co-founder, Wade Foster, wrote an article on their website that talks about why Zapier has always been a 100% remote company. And there's a link to that article in the show notes. He points out to many of the things that I talked about in episode 5, but he did mention one thing that stuck out to me, and I'm going to read it out to you. At its core, running a remote business isn't really all that different from running a co-located business. When I spend time with execs at companies that have scaled, we all end up talking about the same problems, like teams aren't aligned, or this product launch got delayed for XYZ reason, or we have people who are struggling to scale in their roles because the challenges are new or unique. There's a set of problems that any fast-growing company has, remote or not. So Wade essentially alluded to what I discussed earlier in this episode, that the issues companies face are about how they work, not where they work. Well, that's all for this episode. In the next episode, I'm going to discuss strategies for increasing your workforce's productivity with a focus on fast-growing companies. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a review wherever you get your podcasts. This will help me spread the word about organized chaos and keep the show going. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to suggest for the show, please send me an email to hello@organizedchaos.fyi. For more content and resources, make sure to check out the website at organizedchaos.fyi. See you on the next one.